were there?
292. Oh, that is quite substantial. That is okay, hang on. Here we go.
I'm amazed.
Yeah. Got it. So testing. Yes, Inter, do you just want to say something? And then I will make sure it's coming through correctly in the platform.
No problem. So today I'm going to speak about graduate research pathways in the Faculty of Science.
Perfect. That's all going very well. And we'll be going live in 3 minutes.
Fantastic. How many of these do you do a year? Is it like constant or once a month?
I think towards the end of around this period, we've had a bit more webinars compared to normal, but I'd say like once every few months. But I think all the webinars are starting to happen around now because we have the grad research webinar, we had data science webinar, we had veterinary medicine the month before. So I think there's 4 in total around the second half of the year, but they all seem to be happening all at the same time. So busy, yeah.
How many DVM people attended?
There was 3 separate webinars because there was domestic, international, and accelerated pathway, and I think there was around in total probably around 200. I think. I think amongst all 3 though, this webinar has certainly gotten the most registration, so that's quite remarkable. So very excited.
Yeah. That means there could be a lot of questions.
Yeah, and it seems like there's interest. So we're interested to see the
how many attend.
How many attend, but also the quality of the questions. What are the pain points?
And so you will read out the questions that you think should be answered, and then if I will answer if it's graduate research, and you answer if it's
correct.
The masters. Yeah, okay.
Correct. As much as I can regarding the general application, I think the general application procedure, I think you might be a bit more familiar with. But if there's any other questions around Master of Science and those particular areas, then I will be able to answer those to the best I can.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Excellent. You're going live now. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for everybody to come in. Okay, so hello and good afternoon, everyone. You are very welcome to the Science Graduate Research webinar here at the University of Melbourne. We'll just leave it for a few minutes for the audience and attendees to filter their way in before we commence. But if you're here listening to us, thank you for joining. We appreciate having you here. Hello, everyone. We'll just give it a few minutes before we commence with the Graduate Research webinar. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I think we'll commence in 1 minute. Okay, so I think we'll use this opportunity to commence. So good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to our graduates research webinar here at the University of Melbourne. Good afternoon here from Melbourne, local time as well, especially if there's any international students from overseas attending this webinar online as well. But my name is William Trin. I work for the Faculty of Science, and I'm actually one of the student recruitment officers here today, and I'll be speaking about a portion of the graduate research webinar, but I'm also joined here by Jacinta Schroeder, who is the graduate research coordinator, who will also be speaking a little bit more in detail about the programs and the procedure about graduate research. Now, if anyone is in the chat, I would recommend utilizing the Q&A function in the platform that you see, CVent, in order to ask your questions. We'll have a dedicated session, Q&A session towards the end, which we can go through all of your questions. So let's begin. So before I actually commence with the graduate research webinar, I actually want to provide an acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners in which I'm presenting today here in Melbourne and on the land on which our Parkville campus is located. I pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people and to the elders past, present and emerging. So you can see on the screen that Wominjeka is a Woi Wurrung word for welcome. And here at the University of Melbourne, one of the things that we love to touch on, especially to new students who's attending this webinar, but also to those students who perhaps are currently studying at the University of Melbourne, is some of our rankings. You'll see here that we're very proud to announce that University of Melbourne has been, according to the QS rankings in 2023, has been ranked #1 university in Australia. But also around the world, we're very highly ranked as well, competitively at ranked 14. But aside from those particular rankings, we are also very proud to rank very highly at #8 in the graduate employability worldwide. But aside from the academic side, here in Melbourne, it is also highly ranked as one of the best student cities in Australia. Obviously, Melbourne is a bit of a hub for music and culture and sport and art. And you can also obviously have a very great study lifestyle here in Melbourne. So we are very proud, to call not only just the University of Melbourne, but here in Melbourne, one of our livable cities here in Australia. So we hope you join us here in the future as well. On this webinar today, what we'll actually be focusing is predominantly on our graduate research degrees that you see on the right-hand side. We will have a mention on the Master of Science suite that you see, and I'll explain as to why that's very important, especially because graduate research, as from a service level, we understand is very thesis and research oriented. So it's very important for you to understand some of the pathways as well into graduate research. So on the left-hand side, what I will certainly be touching on is the Master of Science suite in the streams that you see on screen on the left. And on the right-hand side, Jacinta will actually be talking about the Master of Industrial Research and Chemistry, as well as the Doctor of Philosophy and the Master of Philosophy. I might actually just quickly chime in to allow Jacinta just to say hi, introduce yourself, Jacinta, so that people on screen can see.
Yes, hello everyone. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. I'm Jacinta Schroeder, Graduate Research Coordinator in the Faculty of Science, and feel free to ask both of us questions towards the end of the session today. Good to see you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Let's commence with the webinar. So one of the questions before you even commence one of our research degrees is, I suppose, why should you study research? And I wanted to provide 3 predominant reasons that students may think of, and as well as what we wanted to share as well. So when you study research, it is an opportunity for you to delve into an area that you're extremely passionate about, along with a lot of other peers and academic researchers in the field as well. When you actually delve into the research component at a university, you will very much be provided with dedicated study spaces and support and academic services that a lot of other students may not have access to. It's a very flexible, very supportive environment, and we do have state-of-the-art technology and facilities available to research students. And on top of that, research is preparing you for a future in academia as well as industry. So a lot of students may opt to pursue PhD and take it further and teach that into universities as well, broadly termed as academia. But you can certainly utilize your PhD and move into many areas in industry, especially along the way with your research degree. You will certainly develop a very core, expansive network of other peers and academics, which you can utilize in the years to come. So just firstly, we want to touch on the Master of Science suite, and actually I'll share why this is very important in the grand scheme of applying for a PhD or a Master of Philosophy. So a Master of Science is considered a coursework, graduate coursework degree. We have here at the University of Melbourne the 7 streams you see on screen, ranging from bioinformatics, biosciences, chemistry, earth sciences, epidemiology, mathematics and statistics, and physics. The reason why we wanted to touch on the Master of Science is, as you can see here, according to the course plan, in year 1 and 2, it's 2 years in total. But you can actually see from the course plan that there is a research project component involved with the Master of Science, both in the first year and in the second year. This is really important, especially as the Master of Science actually will prove to be a pathway into a Master of Philosophy or a PhD, which Jacinta will touch on the entry requirements later on as well. The research component is required you need to have research experience in order to go into a graduate research degree. And our Master of Science suite here at the University of Melbourne, even though it's regarded as a coursework degree, actually has the research component that will allow you to transition into a PhD if you wish. Just a bit of a flow chart you can see. Students can just jump into a Master of Science in a coursework degree, and they can jump into the workforce if they like. But as you can see, it does also provide you a pathway into the PhD. So if there's any students who is undertaking an undergraduate degree and looking for a pathway to then fulfill them to get into the PhD, a Master of Science is actually an available option here at the University of Melbourne, especially as we have the research component as well as the coursework component that will prepare you in the knowledge that you want to specialize in. Just also for anyone referring to in the chat, this is certainly the graduate research webinar for our science-oriented degrees and research degrees. So the Master of Science suite, it is 2 years and it is delivered on campus at our Parkville campus. The entry requirements require you to actually have an undergraduate degree in the area that you want to specialize in, and it needs to be around a 65 weighted average mark, especially amongst the final year third subjects or your final year subjects. We actually take a lot of the grading assessment on the final year, especially for the remaining major subjects that account for your major. Now, each of the Master of Science may have some prerequisite subjects, but I would absolutely advise anyone who's interested in the Master of Science to just simply access our University of Melbourne study page, in which you will see if there's any prerequisites. Also ensure that because there's also research component involved with the Master of Science, there might be a supervisional requirement as well, which you can also see in our study page. I would recommend that you contact our team, especially if you think that you don't meet the requirements, because there are other pathways to get into the Master of Science, which our team can share. We will have our contact details after at the last slide for anyone to make contact. Fantastic. So I'll actually use this opportunity to pass on to Jacinta, who will be able to talk in depth about the types of programs, followed by the needy details about how to apply. So Jacinta, please take over and just let me know when you want to go to the next slide. Thank you very much, William. And again, welcome everybody. Next slide, please, William. I am going to, just so that you know the chronology of what I'm going to speak about, I'm going to talk about the courses that we offer. You can see these on the screen at the moment. Then the entry requirements for these courses, followed by the mode of study for PhD and Masters, how to apply, the scholarships that we have and how your application for scholarship is assessed, the key dates, and a bit more information about what sort of documentation you need to provide with your application. So getting on to what we offer, it's the Master of Philosophy and PhD are the two graduate research programs that we offer at the University of Melbourne. The Master of Philosophy is a 2 years program and the Doctor of Philosophy is 4 years. Sometimes students convert from Master of Philosophy into the PhD, but you can apply for either program with they're assessed in exactly the same way, the applications for those two courses. So often it's a conversation with your prospective supervisor and yourself about which one you apply for. Those programs are available in the science disciplines and also in the agricultural science and veterinary science disciplines. Next slide. Thank you. Just going into further detail about some of the areas that we specialise here in the Faculty of Science. We have ecosystem science, biosciences, chemistry, geography, earth and atmospheric sciences. We also have mathematics and statistics and physics. There's agricultural sciences, which includes food sciences, and veterinary biosciences and clinical sciences, animal sciences, health and welfare, infectious diseases, public health and biosecurity. Next slide, thank you. So
I think probably of great interest is what sort of thesis is required for the Master of Philosophy or the Doctor of Philosophy. The 2-year Master of Philosophy, you're required to write a piece that's 30,000 to 40,000 words. That's your thesis length. And with the PhD, it's 80 to 100,000 words, and it must be on a specialised topic. It must be original research with a unique finding at the end of the, when you submit your thesis. Now, into the entry requirements, a very important aspect, of course, if you're interested in applying. For both the Masters and the PhD, the entry requirements are exactly the same. There is no difference. So for both programs, you can have, one example is a 4-year undergraduate degree in a relevant discipline, which includes a substantial component of research. Substantial means generally 25% of your final year, your honours year or equivalent. And your grade, in order to get a course offer, is that you need at least 75% in your final year subjects. That is, it's hard to explain, but that's 75%. It's standardised into the University of Melbourne grading scale. I can explain a little more about that when we get to the scholarship application stage of our presentation. Another way that you can meet entry requirements is through a master's degree in a relevant discipline again, with a substantial research component and again a WAM of at least 75%. When we say a master's degree, we generally mean one that's 1.5 to 2 years long. If you've done a 1-year master's, that's fine. We can look at that year of your master's degree, and then we can also look at your honours year. And the third way to get in, which is much less utilised by applicants, is if you have qualifications and professional experience that could be considered equivalent. And what we mean by that is, have you published in peer-reviewed journals? Have you done work that's highly relevant to the area that you wish to research in? Then your supervisor can make a case for you that you have reached master's standard in an alternative way. So next slide, please, William. Now, this is a unique program, the Master of Research Chemistry. We've put this in here today, but it is a very bespoke program involving an industrial project with an external partner. So perhaps, I'm not sure how much interest there is in this particular program today, but if you have any questions about it, you can contact us after the presentation. We will answer them. But this is a 200-point course. It does contain coursework, 50 points of coursework, and the remainder is an industry-based research project of 150 points. The entry requirements for this are that you do need an undergraduate degree in chemistry or equivalent and a weighted average mark of at least 75%, or, as with the PhD and the Masters, a qualification and professional experience considered to be equivalent. Okay, so some of you are probably going to be interested in the mode of study. Our graduate research degrees are delivered on campus in Parkville. Can you study PhD or MPhil remotely? The short answer is no, not as a rule, you can't. But of course, PhD and Masters by research students do need to conduct field work, gather data, travel, etc. So that is fine. There's ways to do that. But generally, you must spend some of your time at Melbourne University. Can I do a PhD online or by correspondence? No, you can't. But again, you can study at an approved outside institution. You just need to spend at least 12 months of your PhD candidature living and studying here. Okay, how to apply. This checklist is very helpful because it can get a little confusing when you're submitting an application in terms of the steps that you need to take, especially with graduate research, because it's a little different to applying for an undergraduate coursework course. First step is obviously to choose what course you would like to do, whether it's PhD or master's. And then the next really important step is to think about, are you eligible for that course? Because, and eligibility goes back to those entry requirements we showed you before. The third step, again, very critical, is to find a prospective supervisor. You can do that by, actually, we'll go into that later. The fourth step is to know the scholarship deadlines. And then the fifth, prepare your documentation. Sixth, you submit your online application. And then 7, you receive your outcome. Okay, how to find a supervisor, which I was just alluding to before. A really important step. And there are a few different ways that you can find a supervisor in the Faculty of Science. You need their written support when you're actually submitting an application. But the ways to find it or search for a potential supervisor are to look at our university's Find an Expert directory. If you look up Find an Expert University of Melbourne on Google, you will find that directory that contains all of the researchers at the university, and you can finesse your search to look for, say, earth science supervisors or chemistry supervisors or veterinary science supervisors. You can also look at the Faculty of Science research prospectus or of the school websites, such as the Melbourne Veterinary School website or the School of Physics website. With your application, you need to upload a form, an in-principle supervision form, and you do that after you've had a conversation or email exchanges with the person who has said, yes, they would be interested in supervising you. Important to note that when you are reaching out to a potential supervisor, you should include some documents so that they can make a better informed decision about whether you have the right skills and previous experience. So in that email, you would probably need to, or it'd be best to attach transcripts with a grading scale, your CV, and a summary of your intended area of research or a research proposal. A research proposal isn't essential, but at least give them some idea of what interests you so that they can see if you're the right fit for their work. Next slide, thank you. Okay, scholarships. I think everyone's interested in scholarships. And of note is that if you apply for a PhD or a master's, you are automatically considered for a graduate research scholarship. You don't have to submit an additional application. The scholarships that we have provide a tuition fee exemption, all of them, a living allowance to support you while you're studying, a relocation allowance if you've relocated from outside of Victoria, interstate or from overseas, and if needed, overseas student health cover for the entire duration of your studies. The scholarships are all available to both domestic and international students, and they're based on academic merit in almost all cases. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a list of the scholarships. They're called a Melbourne Research Scholarship and a Research Training Program Scholarship. Basically, they're all known as graduate research scholarships, and they're appropriate for all of the courses that we're talking about today that are graduate research courses. I think, so yeah, there's a link for you if you need. And then next slide, please, William.
Yeah, and just change to the next slide, and
Yep.
This is the next slide actually. Yes, Intel.
Oh, it is.
Did you want me to? Do you want me to go back?
Yeah, would you go back to that previous one?
Sure. There you go.
Okay, sorry Beth about that. So domestic students will all receive, if you have a course offer, you already receive a fee offset. That's automatic for all domestic students. The living allowance is separate. It's considered separately, but the Australian government provides a fee offset for all graduate research domestic students. Okay, scholarship assessment. For the scholarships, PhD and master's applications are assessed in exactly the same way. There is no difference. So if you want to apply for PhD, do, because you will be assessed in exactly the same ways, same methods and gradings as for masters. The faculty reviews your academic history, your research potential, and your previous institution. So when I say research potential, I mean, have you published or have you done work in an area that is research intensive, that sort of thing. And scholarships are awarded to the highest ranked applicants based on this academic score and their research potential. Just of note is that when we look at your application and your prior academic history, your grades are standardised to the university's grading system. So H1 here is 80 to 100 and pass is 50 to 64. If H1 in your home institution starts at 70, then we squash it into our system. Your 70 becomes 80 because your H1 at your institution is 70. And normally the cutoff for domestic applicants to be successful for scholarship is anywhere between 80 to 87. It's really hard to give you more detail than that because it can, that cutoff can change. Often it is perhaps closer to the 87 there, but I still would, if your score was 80, I would still recommend that you submit an application anyway. And same for international applicants. The score normally required is 85 to 90. If you're 85 or even 84, submit an application anyway. So still on how we assess your application, your scholarship application. If you are a master's graduate, we look at your overall master's grades if you studied for 1.5 to 2 years. And then if you did a 1-year master's, we look at that 1-year master as well as your honours grades or your final year, 4th or 5th year, whatever that was. If you haven't completed a master's, we look at your honours grades and your preceding year. Okay, so application closing dates. For the upcoming round, the closing date is 10 days away, so quite soon, and you'll be notified of the outcome of your scholarship application before Christmas, mid-December. Round 2, as you can see, is 15th of February and notification will be in late April. As it says here on the slide, you can submit an application at any time of year, but to be considered for a scholarship, you are required to submit your completed application before one of these deadlines. Next slide, please, William. And the documentation that you will need is evidence of supervisor endorsement, your academic transcripts and the grading system at your institution, if it's not Melbourne University, your CV, publications if you have them, your two referees, and where relevant, evidence that you've met the university's English language requirements. Okay, and here's the code to take you to where you would submit your application. If you're a student at Melbourne University, you can do it through your existing student account. Otherwise, if you're not a Melbourne University student, you submit the application online through a slightly different portal.
Excellent.
And
yep.
Yeah, okay. Our contact details here on the page. You can call us or submit an inquiry via ask.unimel.edu.au. And at the end of the presentation, I'll give you the contact details for the Faculty of Science Graduate Research Office so that you can email us questions directly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jacinta. This is certainly the opportunity if anyone wants to submit their questions. We actually have quite a few that's come in, Jacinta, so it's actually a really good opportunity for us to utilize some of our time now to actually go through some of the science-oriented research questions. And I'll read them out to you as well, especially if there's one that I can, I suppose, delegate to you. Okay, so for those, I can see, yeah, you can actually see for those on the streaming platform, you can actually vote to see what questions are popular for us to ask, or for me to ask, I suppose, on behalf of everyone. And so far, I'll read it out loud since we have 6 votes for this particular question, is just one second, do I have to submit an expression of interest to a professor for supervision before I get accepted into the program? I will say absolutely, and I can happy to go back a few slides, but Jacinta, if you want to just touch base on that, the supervisor component again.
That's right. Yes, you're right. You do need to you need to contact the supervisor via email or through Find an Expert and ask them start that conversation. Are they looking for students or PhDs to do a particular project at the moment? Are they interested in your area of research, your skills? You do that, attach your CV, attach your grades, so that it makes it easy for them to, look at whether you're the right fit with them. But you must contact and have the support of the supervisor before submitting your application.
Thank you so much for that, Jacinta. I'll just pop it back to the slide about how to find a supervisor. And I'd also just want to provide further clarity that when you do make contact with the supervisor, and if there is an endorsement, you must utilize the in-principle supervision form. You're welcome to email and have that conversation, but in terms of the application proof, it must be the in-principle supervision form. You can access that through our website, but just to be clear, it is the form. So thank you so much for that, Jacinta. I'll just go back to the Q&A slide. Excellent. So go to the next question. So we have a question from Brian, and I think, Jacinta, this is one I would read out to you specifically. So greetings from Kenya. My question is, what resources and support services are available specifically for international graduate research students in the Faculty of Science at the University of Melbourne?
Support services? Well, we provide a travel support if you want to attend conferences during the year. We provide a lot of workshops and communications workshops and opportunities like that. Thesis boot camp is another thing that we provide. We have a suite of events that we do to give you some professional development opportunities, and the university as well. The wider university has academic skills offerings, English language skill offerings. Again, they also have thesis boot camps. There's opportunity to apply for travel scholarships. I'm trying to think of other things.
You sound wonderful already, but the travel allowance and the thesis boot camps, I've heard quite a bit about that. So that sounds like what a great way to smash out a portion of the 80 to 100,000 words.
True.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jacinta, and hopefully everyone in the audience got something out of that. Next question is, do we need to have a Master's of Science to get into Master of Philosophy? I'll just quickly display that on screen. That is an example of one avenue you can get into a PhD. The Master of Science is a graduate coursework degree in the Faculty of Science that does involve a research component within the 2 years, but that research component does meet the requirements in order to then get into a PhD or a Master of Philosophy, especially if you wanted to undertake further research. But there are other avenues to get into the Master of Philosophy and the PhD. Obviously, you can do your 4-year bachelor degree, which hopefully includes a substantial research component. A classic example is the honours program in the final year. And other qualifications and professional experience that is deemed equivalent. So the Master of Science, though, if specifically to that question, the Master of Science, yes, is an avenue that you can utilize to get into the Master of Philosophy, especially the University of Melbourne. Obviously, speaking on behalf of the University of Melbourne, our Master of Science are oriented in a way where it meets the requirement for the Master of Philosophy or the Doctor of Philosophy.
And can I add a little to that? Other pathways are the Master of Agricultural Science or the Master of Food Science from institutions around the world. Also, the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine can be a pathway. It's if you've completed a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine in an accredited institution around the world, then that's a pathway into the Masters of Philosophy or the PhD.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Okay, next question is it a must to contact a supervisor before applying for a master degree? I suppose I'll address this in, I suppose, 2 avenues. One of them, obviously, as Jacinta's mentioned before, if you're applying for a Master of Philosophy or a PhD, yes, it is absolutely necessary to firstly speak to a supervisor and then obtain their endorsement that they, in principle, approve to be your supervisor. So for the research degrees, yes. If you're referring to the Master of Science Master of Science coursework degrees, depending on the stream, there will be a requirement for you to reach out to a supervisor, but then the other remaining streams don't have that requirement. I would recommend the students just refer to the study page at the University of Melbourne in order to see whether the stream that you are interested in does require that supervision prior to submitting an application. Okay, pardon me. Okay, so the next voted question is, if I'm currently enrolled in a master degree in a different country, can I transfer to the University of Melbourne, or can I apply to do a master program in a related field? Absolutely. If you're studying in a different country, such as if you're an international student currently, it's as simple as submitting a new application to the University of Melbourne. From a, I suppose, specific wording point of view, so I wouldn't necessarily consider it as a transfer. It's just a new application if you're an international student, and then you can apply to the University of Melbourne. And yes, can I apply to a master program in a related field? Yes, absolutely. Especially if we have that program, we have a big suite of, coursework degrees as well, Master of Science, Master of Agricultural Sciences, Environment, Climate Science. We have all those particular degrees. So if it's a master by coursework degree you're referring to, yes, you're welcome to. Okay. Ooh, lots of lots of questions have come in. I'll find the next question for the Jacinta for you
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
answer, and then I'll flick the questions through so that everyone can
Yeah,
see.
sure.
Okay. Oh, pardon me. Well, these seems like questions for me, but we'll see. Are we going to get the recorded? Are we going to get the recorded version of this presentation? Absolutely. Once this recording is finished, all registrants will receive a copy of the recording, so that you can revisit whenever you like. Okay. Next one here. Do you guys offer something like the Master of Philosophy in research? Absolutely. I'm not sure if you want to provide another general answer to that. Do we offer a Master of Philosophy? But in the meantime, I'll just quickly flick
That's
over the
right, yes.
questions.
We do offer a Master of Philosophy in the Faculty of Science. It's a 2-year program, and you can have specialty in all sorts of different areas: biosciences, physics, chemistry, agricultural or food sciences. Are some of the things that are coming to mind.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I've just put in a question which might be of use. Can you apply for only one scholarship round?
That's a good and interesting question. You can apply for one scholarship round, and then if you're not successful, yes, you can apply for another one. At the moment, I'm not clear on whether you can apply for, keep applying. But yes, at the moment you can apply for one round, unsuccessful, apply for another one.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm just filtering through the questions, so bear with me, everyone. There is a question here. I'll just quickly read this out. So, pardon me, a question from Brandon Clark. Are the start dates for research the same, even if the application is submitted on October 15th or February 15th?
That's a great question, and the answer is that once you've received a scholarship and a course offer, you can actually commence at any time during the period that offer is for. So if you receive an offer in our upcoming round, you accept that this year, and then you can start at any time between January and June next year, 30th of June next year. So that is how it works you can start at any time on any day of the week. It's a discussion between your supervisor and yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I've just put in through another few questions for everyone to see. Okay, I have a master's degree in data science and I would like to do my research in data science and machine learning. Can I do that with the Faculty of Science? So Majid, that's a great question. So on data science, we do have, I believe, a stream in mathematics and statistics, which depending on what sort of area specifically you want to specialize in, that will fall under the Faculty of Science. Otherwise, it likely will fall under the PhD with our Faculty of Engineering and IT area. So this will depend on which area you want to go towards, but we will have a Doctor of Philosophy or research depending on which area you want to focus on. Okay. So, is there a way to convert our grades to standardized grades like a calculator or something? Fantastic question. We online actually have a University of Melbourne grade conversion calculator. You can actually look up that online right now. And also just a caveat to that, it is a guide. It's not, I suppose, the final absolute assessment. Obviously, the broader answer to this is that, the only way we can really assess your grades is if you formally submit your application with all of your transcripts and grading scales so that we can make I suppose, the equivalent assessment. But if you did want a guide, University of Melbourne has just released a few months ago the grade conversion calculator. And if you want to utilize that right now, just so that you can get an idea on where you stand, we do have a calculator that is available, and it's on the University of Melbourne website. So Riza, how about IT? IT, the Doctor of Philosophy will, pardon me, we will have a Doctor of Philosophy, but that is with a different faculty, the Faculty of Engineering and IT. Okay, are there any full scholarships offered for the Master of Science degrees? Unfortunately, we don't. All of our coursework related degrees, we don't have a fully funded scholarship, but we do have the Science Graduate International Scholarship, which does provide a fee remission of $10,000. So there are a range of coursework scholarships available, and that is an example of one. But in terms of a scholarship for the research degrees, as Jacinta's mentioned before, every student who's applying for a PhD will be assessed for the graduate research scholarship, which does provide a fee offset, as well as a stipend if you're successful, but competitive as well, must be noted. Okay. I'm wondering if I can pose this question, and if to you, Jacinta, in the application form, there is a employer referee section. How would these be evaluated? I'm wondering if you have any idea on that one.
Look, I think it would be fair to say that the employer referee section, if that's completed, that your prospective supervisor will take most notice of that, not the scholarship allocation committee. So your supervisor will be interested in how you performed at work, if that's relevant, or in your academic history, but it won't affect scholarships. We don't use that to give you any additional points.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Okay, just having a look. Okay. So we have a few questions on. So where can I find the I'll just display the question from Sky. But where can I find information on the latest available projects that come with scholarships, and do I need to contact professors directly to inquire? From, I suppose, my initial response, and please, please follow, especially if you have anything to add as well. In the Find an Expert page, which you can access right now at University of Melbourne, it will certainly filter by academics, but alongside those filters, you can actually filter by projects as well. So you can actually see some of the projects that some of our academics are working on, and then you can utilize that to inquire with the academics, but otherwise you can also flip that order around. You can contact the academics in order to work out some of their projects as well. Anything to add to that, Jacinta, or anything about research projects?
No, actually, you've captured it perfectly.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Just bear with me, everyone. Feel free to keep adding for further questions in the chat. We still have around 10 minutes to answer questions. Quickly just go up as well. Okay, one of our questions here is, so can I apply for a PhD or a Master of Philosophy while in my final year of Master of Science studies? Yes, absolutely. And I think even if we refer to the key dates, such as the scholarship deadlines, we'd actually certainly recommend so. Jacinta, do you have any comments
Yeah, that's
on that?
absolutely right. The closing date for the scholarship applications is 15th of October, as you know. And if you're at Melbourne University, we can get your final results. I know they come out around mid-November. We can get them from the system and add them to your application. We are keeping an eye on our students' results. Honours year as well. So they are out in time for normally, maybe not in every instance, but generally they're out in time for us to put them into your scholarship application and make note of them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Jacinta. Okay. Thank you for your questions, everyone. Okay, let me just pop these through. Okay, here we go. Okay, a question from Manisha has actually asked, is the scholarship valid throughout the duration of the PhD?
That's a good question. The scholarship is for 3.5 years maximum, the living allowance. Tuition fee waiver can be provided for up to 4 years. So it can be challenging if you don't complete your thesis by 3.5 years. That final 6 months is not funded by a living allowance.
There you go. Thank you so much. Okay, just going back up to the questions. Okay, pardon me. Which discipline would biomedical science fall under? That would fall under our Faculty of Dentistry, Health and Medicine. So that broadly known as MDHS. So there will be a different Doctor of Philosophy related to that particular area. A question here from Path is, how can one transfer from Master of Philosophy to PhD? We mentioned that slightly earlier at the start, but Jacinta, did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So if you're doing a Master of Philosophy at Melbourne University, at fairly much any stage after you've begun, perhaps 6 months in onwards, you can discuss it with your supervisor. They're likely to be wanting to discuss that with you if you're going well. And you might both agree that it'd be a good idea to convert to PhD. Then it's a matter of submitting an application to do that to the faculty. And it goes through some approvals. And then when you are approved to go into PhD, you have the same amount of time. Your PhD has the same start date as your original master's start date, but your scholarship can be extended to 3.5 years. So that's the great thing. If you do convert to PhD from master's, your scholarship is automatically extended.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jacinta. So still a lot of questions coming through. So thank you so much, everyone. Okay, so going to the next question is, where can I find information on the latest available projects that come with the scholarship? I think broadly with the projects, you can utilize the Find an Expert page at the University of Melbourne website, and there'll be a filter which allows you to see the research projects available from our academics. Interesting question from Brandon, thank you. Is there a certain amount of scholarships allocated for each application round? Any idea on that, Jacinta?
It can range a little bit depending on a few factors, but I would say perhaps there's 80 scholarships available for PhD and Masters.
There you go. Yeah, that's Obviously, it's very competitive in terms of the requirements as well. I'll quickly just navigate to the scholarship assessment so people can just sort of see a bit of an idea as well. So question from Gia, may I know if this session is recorded? Absolutely, this session is recorded and all registrants will be emailed a recording of the video upon completion, which we will share in very, very soon after the session is complete. Okay. Next question. Okay, another question from Gia is, I noticed that the Uni Melbourne is offering a graduate research scholarship. May I know when the due date for the application? Yep, I'll just quickly go to that slide. You can see that the graduate research scholarships, they go through several rounds, but the main 2 rounds that you can see, the closing dates is the 15th of October and the 15th of February, which you have to submit your PhD application by. Okay, next question. Okay, so pardon me. I read that we need a substantial research component along with a master degree. Can we apply for a PhD with a master degree alone? So Sukala, the entry requirements of the graduate research degrees does indicate that you need a substantial research component that you since has mentioned are probably around sort of 25% of your degree. So if your particular master degree is just purely coursework, unfortunately, you have to make up a bit of research component through another program. But if your master's does include a substantial research component, yes, you can absolutely apply. Okay. Okay, so one I think I'll give you just a heads up of regarding the documentation checklist. It says the names and contact information of academic or employee referees. Is it necessary for them to submit their reference letters before the scholarship deadline to be considered?
It's
an interesting question.
I'd say it's not absolutely essential. I think absolutely aim for that though, because your prospective supervisors will look at that. The scholarship allocation committee members will look at referees as well. The scholarship allocation committee won't add points or anything based on your referees, but nonetheless we'll look at those. So do your best to get them. If you can't, then don't stress.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jacinta. I'm just going through some of the remaining questions. Thank you, everyone. It's been very, very amazing to see the interest of our research degrees. So thank you, Jacinta, as well for answering all the questions. Okay, let's just have a look. Okay, just going to send these through. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, that's a great question. So I haven't really understood the key differences between the Master of Science and the Master of Philosophy. Why pick one over the other? Yeah, that's a great question. I'll quickly go back to the Master of Science study sequence, so that might paint a bit of a clearer picture on the differences. Master of Science is considered a graduate coursework degree. Master of Philosophy is considered a graduate research degree. You can see here with Master of Science in the course plan, and again, there is 7 streams you can see with the Master of Science, and depending on the stream, okay, you will see that you have to do core subjects related to that stream. These are core coursework subjects as well as electives that relate to that stream as well, and then depending on the stream as well, there will be a research subject in the first year, as well as the second year. But there is a combination of coursework-oriented subjects as well as research subjects. The Master of Philosophy, however, is also a 2-year program. However, it would predominantly be research projects throughout the first and second year. You will predominantly be working on your 30 to 40,000 word thesis, as well as your research project. As with the academics, the coursework subjects is essentially not undertaken, or if there isn't, it's extremely minimal. But so the Master of Philosophy is a research-oriented degree and does have the requirement for students to actually have some research experience to get into. That's the Master of Philosophy, whereas the Master of Science coursework, you can come from a bachelor degree in a related stream. I'll also go back to the entry requirements. As you can see here, there is predominantly the bachelor degree that you can hold, as well as a WAM requirement, as well as any subject prerequisite requirements. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea on the main difference between the two. Okay, pardon me. Okay, so might have this as the last question, the last voted question, and I'll refer this to Jacinta. So hi, so Jira, Tio, thank you for the question. Hi, I understand the scholarship results for the science PhD will be posted in mid-December for round 1. Will applicants be informed of whether their application for the program itself, not for the scholarship, is successful beforehand?
That's right. So you will hear the outcome of both your scholarship and your PhD or Masters by Research application at the same time. Maybe not in exactly the same day, but normally the 2 offers are issued together, not separately. I should add also that if you have an external scholarship from your home country or grant funding or what have you, we can assess your PhD or your Masters of Philosophy application outside of these scholarship rounds.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Jacinta. So thank you so much for everyone the questions. I will just leave the further contact details of our team, which you can send further information as well. So I would utilize if someone still has further questions with the graduate research, any inquiries with that, please send an inquiry through the information you see on screen, ask.unimel.edu.au. You can use the inquiry form that will come straight to us, and we'll be able to answer those questions after this session as well. Thank you so much for everyone for attending. A recording of the session will be made available right after the session for all the registrants. And we hope you enjoyed the graduate research webinar. Thank you again, Jacinta, for staying back and answering all the questions. And we hope to see all the students attending this webinar, hopefully at the University of Melbourne in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.